I didn't get back to you earlier telling you I was actually going to be here. My bad on that.
We're happy you're here. Okay, well, I'm going to start on time, which I know we got 1 minute, but if we've got a quorum, we don't have a huge agenda, and there might be people who want to get back on that Front Range trail, rail, whatever the heck it is. So I don't want to keep people any longer than necessary. All right, well, in the interest of time, we're going to call the meeting to order at 1:30. Originally, I wasn't going to be here, so I was going to tap Brian out, but it worked out that I'm here, so I think we are good to go. We have a quorum. We'll call it to order. And Jessica, do you want to run through and see who's here and who's not?
Sure. So I'm going to run down the list of everyone I've seen so far. Looks like we have a couple more popping in right now. Anyway. So I'm going to go down the list. Wendy for CDOT, Lachelle, Matt, we see Anton, Aaron, Brandy, Karen, Darren H, Jason, Sally, and PPACG staff. Is there any committee members that I did not catch? I see Gail has joined us for the city, and Junior for CDOT. Anybody else? Kathleen as well? Mark you guys all on here. All right, anybody else? Going once? Sold. Okay, Brandy, back to you.
Thank you. Item 2, agenda approval. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Move to approve.
I'll take a move approval. Do we have a second?
Anton second.
I'll second. Yep.
I'll let Anton and Jason fight it out. Who got the second?
Jason
Go ahead.
wins.
No,
All right.
I'll move to approve. I'll second.
All right, we got Jason as our second. We got a motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any objections? Any opposed? Okay, we have approval of the agenda. Is there anyone on the meeting that would like to comment on things that are not on the agenda?
No.
Yes, this is Laura Cruz, staff member for PPACG. I'm the new mobility coordinator. There's just a quick heads up I wanted to give you guys. As you know, we've been working on the transition of 5310 funds through FTA from MMT to PPACG, and we have gone through a couple of steps. We've been approved by the board to move forward in the process in the August meeting of securing that funding. We have also sent off a letter to the governor requesting the designated recipient status. And now we're to the point of presenting our program management plan. And so that program management plan will be ready for public comment October 1st. So we will be sending that out to all the committees to take a look at and make any suggestions moving forward. So I just wanted to give you guys a quick heads up about that, and we will be getting that out to the committee soon.
Thanks, Laura. Does anybody have any questions for Laura? Anyone else want to comment on items that are not on the agenda? Beautiful. Item 4, approval of the minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes?
This is Karen. I was a little unclear about the attendance sheet. It didn't look like very many people had X's to note they were present. And I just wanted to note that both Joel Grebenik and I were present.
Yeah, this is Lachelle from CDOT. I was, Matt and Junior were also present at that one.
I'll double check all of the attendance on there. Might have been something that just got looked over at the end of the minutes there. Someone else I think might have ran that meeting for me. So I'll double check and make sure everybody's updated and make sure everyone's shown as attending.
All my fault.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jessica. And Jessica, we got double Jessicas. Any other comments on the minutes? Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
This is Sally. I'll move to approve with corrections to the attendance.
Anton with a second.
We've got a motion and a second to approve the minutes with the changes that Sally mentioned to the attendance record. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, let me look through my names here. All right, Catherine, are you on for the board of directors report?
I am.
Oh, good. At least you're not totally surprised.
No, John can't be here this week because he is moving one of his daughters from Arizona to here. So let's see if I can find the document. Okay, so the board report, there's not a whole lot. It was a kind of a smaller meeting. They did approve our 2 tip amendments. The first one was for the SP Metro cost overrun request, so those were approved. And the other one was the tip programming updates that we did, and that made a couple changes for El Paso County, or that they made for us, which was nice of them. And then we had a presentation on some ozone data, and then Laura talked about the mobility coordination there as well. So that's kind of all the things that are semi-related to us.
Does anybody have any questions for Catherine?
Catherine, this is Anton. Did John give any more explanation about how the board was looking at the air quality stuff? And was it more of just like they were in receive mode and thank you very much after the presentation, or was there any level of conversation? The reason I'm asking is, wanted to see just how much forward or how much progress the board wants to make in this, or are they or are they just really just interested in knowing about it but not necessarily pursuing actions at this time?
So the presentation was just more of this is what's going on in the area. Previously, Samantha Bailey, our environmental planner here, or at PPACG, has talked about a plan that I can't remember the name of it right now because I'm not working on it, but a plan to talk about action items that we could take to help with air quality, and that was approved by the board. So there are actions planned. A lot of those actions are things we're already doing, but this is formalizing it into a regional plan that then goes to the EPA. And so there is some of that, and I can forward you some of that information if you'd like.
I have that information, Catherine. Thank you very much. I just wanted to kind of get more of what the board's tone for it was. But it sounded like it was more of an informational brief than a decisional type thing. Okay, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Catherine? Okay, item 6, presentations, Powers South and resiliency.
It looks like
I am on. Yes. Can you all hear and see me?
Yes and
yes. Okay, great. Sorry, I had a couple of technical difficulties this afternoon. So I have a very brief presentation that I was going to make. I did talk with the PEL, the South Powers PEL group earlier in August, and gave a very similar presentation, but basically what's going on is with this, and you all know that the South Powers PEL is moving forward, and I think are supportive of that. CDOT for a while has been looking for a project that's doing an environmental study to try to see how we might use data about risk and resiliency to better inform decisions in the environmental process. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. So far, we've received good feedback from your PEL group and hope to get your endorsement today to partner with you. It would be something that CDOT would provide the cost and consultant assistance to do this extra work. But we really would appreciate your partnership in helping to move this forward, and think that it also sets you up nicely as a county to compete for future funding that may become available from the federal government related to resiliency projects. So, and I'll touch on all of that. So I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, I think this is it. Are you all seeing my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so again, my name is Lizzie Kemp. I work at CDOT, and I manage what's called the Risk and Resiliency Program at CDOT. It's a program that was created about 2 years ago, and we've been working on trying to develop tools and techniques for calculating risk and benefit cost analysis for making investments where spending now can help us to not spend so much later as natural hazards occur. So what is transportation resiliency? At AASHTO, they define transportation resiliency as the ability to prepare and plan for, absorb, recover from, or more successfully adapt to adverse events. I think this is a pretty simple definition. I like to use it because it's easily digestible to pretty much anyone who has really even never been exposed to the concept of resiliency. The idea is, and if you look back to like health and human services, which this idea really stemmed from that many, many years ago, is that what makes it so that one community or one person can face the same threat or the same level of difficulty and come out strongly. So how do we make sure that our communities are as strong as possible and that our transportation system is as strong as possible to rebound and really survive these inevitable challenges that we face? There are 4 attributes of resiliency that CDOT likes to think about in terms of the concept of resiliency. So robustness, how strong is our system or our organization to withstand threats that come our way? Do we have redundant routes? Do we have backup systems? Do we have a backup server, for example? Do we have many detour routes that even if one route goes down, people can still get from point A to point B? Resourcefulness, how well have we identified those problems and created a sense of community around us to be able to respond to those things? That could look like, a partnership between CDOT and the community to make sure that in the event of a major, snowstorm, that we partner together to make sure that we make the best use of our equipment, that kind of thing. And then rapidity, how quickly are we able to restore functionality, basic functionality to our system? And then the other thing that CDOT has been thinking a lot about is that resiliency at the DOT can be two different major facets. It can be physical, the ability of our assets and the system itself to perform when we're subject to a hazard, but also organizational. How do we as an organization make decisions and take actions to respond, to return our system to its desired operations? And both of those things are important. So in 2018, as I mentioned, CDOT deliberately set up this resiliency program, and it's the program that I manage. I am just so you know, I am a program of one, and I work part-time, so it's not like we have a huge staff dedicated to this, but it's something that I'm really committed to. And what this policy directive did is basically say we believe in this concept of resiliency and want to build it into day-to-day decision making, make sure that we have data on risk that we're using to make the best decisions possible. And so we're working to support that effort, and your involvement in terms of allowing us to piggyback or partner with you on this PEL is part of that effort. To that end, we kicked off a resiliency integration project in February of this year. I'll be the first to admit we've had a couple of hiccups with the pandemic in terms of getting a little bit delayed beyond our schedule, but The idea is we wanted to do 5 proof of concept case studies throughout different aspects of CDOT's business to show to demonstrate how can you use this data that we're creating or generating from the risk and resiliency tools that we've developed to better inform those decisions. And so we're underway right now with 2 case studies. One is looking at some new requirements from FHWA on how we have to deal with assets that have been damaged more than once. So the idea there is, if you've had multiple occurrences of damage at the same location, maybe you ought to think about it differently and assess what the benefit cost is to doing something different. So that's well underway. The second case study that we've been working on is looking at mitigation plans for minor culverts and flooding. We did an I-70 pilot project on risk and resiliency that basically showed that in that quarter at least, our risk to flooding and inundation and closure of roads related to minor culverts failing is by far the biggest risk that we have to the users of our system on that corridor. And so we're trying to look at how, for those culverts that are most at risk, how can we address that, and where does it make sense to spend the money? So we have 3 more case studies. One of them is related to environmental documents, and we've been looking for ideas, frankly, for the last 3 months or so. And so you'll see there, I've got a question mark on say, is Powered Boulevard PEL going to be our target? And I really hope that it will be. So just as kind of a tickler maybe for you all, or a tease, there have been a number of, nothing has stuck yet, but in Congress there have been a number of proposals for reauthorization out there over the last year and a half-ish. Again, as I mentioned, none of them have passed forward yet, but what's interesting about every single one of them is that they do include money, and some pretty significant money, for investing in resiliency. So the idea that we should be looking at how to invest proactively in our system to make it stronger so that we don't have to come back and clean up after the fact with even more money. So the idea that you spend $1 now to harden your system in order to avoid spending $10 later is something that the federal government generally is very interested in pursuing. And they're starting to look at creating funding programs that would actually do that. So I think maybe an incentive to you all, if it's not enough to convince you that this is a good program and that it would be a fun thing for you all to participate in, I think there could potentially be some funding down the road to support the investments that your PEL comes up with. So that's all I had, unless anybody who has been involved on this team thinks I missed something. I'm certainly open to questions, but hopefully that gave you a decent overview of what CDOT is doing with regard to resiliency and how we would hope to partner with you on this PEL.
Does anybody have any questions? Okay, then I have a quick question. You mentioned additional funding, and again, I may have missed it in the presentation, but will there be funding specifically earmarked for projects that have gone through this process? Is that what your anticipation is, or is that theoretical at this point?
Yeah, it's theoretical at this point, so we don't know. We've just seen 2 or 3 different reauthorizations proposals come through in draft form. And most, or I would say all of them that I've seen, have a pretty significant amount of funding, like to the point of like 6.5 billion over 5 years or something. And it's typically a combination of some formula funds to the state and some discretionary funding nationwide. And we don't know what that's going to look like at the end, but the idea is CDOT is really out in front in terms of doing these risk and resiliency analyses. So they're not going to prescribe that this is the particular process that you need to go through yet at the national level. But we feel confident at CDOT that we're well out in front in saying we have a process in place, we've been doing this, and we know how to evaluate when it makes sense to do this from a benefit cost perspective, which I think puts us in a really good place to compete.
And we would love some of that extra money.
Yeah, exactly. CDOT at this point does not have a set aside pot of money for resiliency investments. Right now, we're dealing with it in our asset management programs. So it's something that we're trying to bake into those investment decisions that we're making. But it's not like we have a separate additional set aside of funding.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions? Well, thank you for the presentation, and we all look forward to that process. Item 7, action items. Catherine?
Hello. Catherine Winger, PPACG Transportation Planner. I like to say that for the video. All right, so this is a request for TIP amendment number 6 to our FY21 through 24 TIP. This is a request from, or 3 requests from CDOT to amend some projects. And so the first one would be the I-25 South Academy Bridge. That's part of the build grant, the MAMSIP project. This is to reduce funds in 22 and then add some in 21 to keep the project whole. And these changes are being made due to the issue with SB 267 funds that were reduced. And so now they're trying to put other funds in their SDP federal funds for the region. The second is Fillmore to Goddard of the Gods, a similar situation, reduce the funds in 22 and add them in 21, 23, and 24. And then finally the US 24 Woodland Park project, reduce funds in 23 and add them into 22 and 24. All of these new funds are STP federal funds, with part of them being local match state requirements. And let's see. And then the official request form is attachment 1. And I see that Andy Stecklin's on the line from CDOT if you have any specific questions on these requests.
If I can ask, this is Sally from Woodland Park. If the Woodland Park project is the overlay that will base on Highway 24 and what the scope is for those millions of dollars?
This is a resurfacing project. This is Andy with CDOT, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a resurfacing project. So the intention is to repair the driving surface of the roadway.
And do you know the extent of that? Woodland Park has mile marker 285 right in the middle of town.
I don't have the exact milepost limits from start to finish, but it's roughly between Woodland Park and Divide. I'm sorry, I don't have the exact limits for you, but I can get those and send them over to you, Sally.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Hey, Andy, this is Tim Roberts with the City of Colorado Springs. The I-25 Fillmore to Garden of the Gods, what does that entail?
All of these projects, that one included I-25 South Academy, is a resurfacing project to rehabilitate the driving surface of the road.
Is that your question, Tim?
I'm sorry, yeah, that was it. Thank you.
Okay. Perfect. I just want to make sure you didn't have another one that didn't show up in the chat window. Any other questions on this item? Can I get a motion to approve?
This is Sally. I'll recommend that the Board of Directors approve amendment number 6 to the funding year 21 to 24 TIP.
This is Tim Roberts. I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Wonderful, motion carries. Item 8, information items, PPACG Strategic Plan Update. Jessica McMullen.
Hello, Give me just a moment. I'm pulling it up to make sure I'm looking at the same thing you all are. So as you may know, the strategic plan was approved in 2018. And when we approved that, it was the first one in PPACG's 50-year history. That process was handled by staff suggestions and by the board breaking into small groups to develop what those should be. It's been 2 years, and this last 6 months has definitely shown a lot of changes that nobody anticipated that'll impact our strategic plan. So I am bringing this for you to give us the chance to give us the TAC feedback. Let us know if you saw anything in there that stood out to you, or if there was something you were particularly interested in, or if you want me to describe why something got changed the way it did. I don't feel like it's a walk through all of it. I'm sure you guys all read ahead.
Right.
Anybody have any specific questions for Jessica? And Jessica, if they didn't want to go through it now, can they email you after the meeting?
Yes, you can, and that's always okay. All of the comments we receive are going to be presented to the board of directors when they see this at their October board meeting.
This is Karen. I have one question related to the aging objectives. I was just interested in whether there's been an effort to identify where seniors primarily want to go. Hubs of senior activity like medical areas or social centers, because it seems like that would be really important to inform the transportation strategy for them. I was just curious.
Well, I'm going to put a note in that to find out. I know that the, please forgive me just a moment. Pikes Peak, the Colorado Springs Aging Objectives research papers, there have been 2 done now for being an age-friendly community, did get into that, but not very deeply, and it wasn't on a transportation expertise level. So they touched on it, but I don't think they got deep on it, but I'll make sure to bring it up to the board that may be something that the transportation or the aging groups may want to look at more is, have we looked at where they're trying to go and what they're trying to do?
Great, thanks.
And this is Laura, the mobility coordinator. Just to kind of answer that a little bit further, we understand that there's a lot of gaps within the senior population in transportation. And CDOT last week in the CASTA conference presented some great information on a study that they did, I believe it was last year or in 2018. And we'll be taking a look at that information that they have put together. Some of that was specifically for our region as well, but there is some good opportunities for us in the future to do a deeper dive into the transportation issues that exist for the senior population and those that are disabled that depend upon the services that our agencies we work with provide.
Did anyone have any other comments or thoughts or things they wanted to know a little bit more about?
Well, you did an excellent job, Jessica. So if anybody has any questions, please touch base with Jessica or comments or anything that you feel like the board should know as far as this plan. And like she said, she'll get them to the board of directors.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jessica. Item 8B, CDOT updates. Kathleen?
Sure. The one thing I'll mention is that Irv Halter, the Transportation Commissioner for District 9, which includes Park, Teller, El Paso, and Fremont counties, he has left the state. He's moved out of state, and we're still in the process, or the governor is still in the process of figuring out who to replace him. So that's the word. In terms of the Transportation Commission, The other announcement I wanted to make, this is more internal baseball for the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments, but the CPG contracts have been distributed to all the MPOs via DocuSign. And we sent you an email just now, actually, requesting you confirm that you got it okay and that the app to sign it is working appropriately, because another MPO had issues with signing the contract. But anyway, just wanted to get that word out too. That's all the news I have. Wendy, do you have any other news to report?
I can answer Sally's question. According to what I was given, the project limits for the project should be from milepost 275 to 285. And if that runs through a area in the middle of your town, then Shane Ferguson will be working with you to get that scheduled, and the city itself, Shane and his group will be working to make sure that we're not impacting traffic, and they'll figure out some way to work everything through and the impact of business and so forth. So it won't just be a, here you go. I just want you to know that.
Okay, Wendy, that's very helpful. Thanks. I'll reach out to Shane, because it would be odd to start or end the project in the center of town.
Yeah, I kind of figured that's where, from what I saw, that's what I thought too. But they will be in touch before they start working on it to mitigate as much of the issue that you can mitigate in a surface treatment project.
Okay.
As far as anything else in the region right now, we're working on putting together information for the 267 projects that have survived, that are moving forward. The tip amendment that was made today was to help backfill a project that lost its 267 funding. So we took surface treatment funding from the program to make that other project in a rural area whole. And so we had to do some shuffling to get everything back in place. So that's what the tip amendment was all about today. And I want to say thank you to Andy for his help with his knowledge and his support. And Michelle, do you have anything?
No, I don't have anything. Thanks, Wendy.
So I have a quick question for Kathleen. You mentioned contracts coming out and being able to sign them and things of that nature. Are those going to PPACG and then get distributed? Should we all have one of those? Is there a way to make sure I got it if I was supposed to? Is there a master list of who's getting those and who isn't?
I would have to defer to Pikes Peak on that question, or Wendy, but I just know that they've been distributed to the MPO bodies right now.
I think that's with the CPG, is it not?
That's what it sounded like, Kathleen. The CPGs are just for the MPO signatures,
Right.
so it's the contract between CDOT and the MPOs.
Right, okay. I wasn't
Those
sure
are
if
the
there was
operating
anything
funds.
further. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Kathleen, go ahead.
I wasn't sure if there was another level of things beyond that, but I know that these contracts go to the MPOs for signature.
It's their operating funds, Brandy.
Perfect. So I shouldn't be missing anything in my inbox.
Correct.
That's what I needed to confirm, because everything gets lost in there. It's like a black hole.
Oh, sorry.
Go
One
ahead.
more comment to Kathleen. John, as you can probably tell, is not here, and he'll be back on Monday. So if you might hear from him or not hear from him until then, just as an FYI.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Any other questions or comments for or from CDOT?
Yes, this is Andy, and I just received a message from Jody Pieper, the materials engineer for the region, and his unit is leading the projects that we were speaking about earlier with the tip amendments. Specifically, the Woodland Park to Divide rehab project. Wendy just said the mileposts, which are roughly 275 to 284. And that does put the project limits just on the west side of town. It's about the western limit of, the eastern limit of the project is about 3/4 of a mile from the hospital intersection.
Okay.
If that helps to give you some context, it is outside of town, but pretty close to the edge.
Okay. Thank you, Andy. That makes a lot more sense because I know we're going to be part of the resurfacing project that will begin next year. So if it goes through town, through Woodland Park, that makes much better sense. And then pick up with this resurfacing that will go from just beyond the hospital to Divide. Thank you.
Sure.
Again, any other questions, comments to or from CDOT? Thanks for that update, Andy, in real time. Okay, item 8, because we got 2 item 8s, but that's all right. Second item 8, member entity announcements. Anybody got any good stories? Every road in Fountain's closed. That's about all my update is. I can't turn around without closing the roads. So don't drive in Fountain in the next 2 weeks. You won't be able to go anywhere. Thankfully, CDOT's in control of Mesa Ridge Parkway, so it's open. The rest of them are pretty much closed. Anybody else?
Brandy, this is Sally. I'd just like to make one comment. I realize the importance of South Powers PEL. I just want to remind everyone that, of course, Woodland Park would be interested in a PEL at some point in the near future to study the reliever route and environmental and planning issues associated with a bypass for Woodland Park. And I guess if anybody's been up here on the weekends, you'll have planned to spend time in traffic congestion. It's very, very busy, starting Friday morning through Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, it's definitely different, Sally. I didn't think there were that many cars in El Paso County, but somehow they find themselves on 24 over the Memorial Day, Labor Day weekend, whichever comes second. Labor Day weekend, it was basically a car in every square inch from about Divide all the way to I-25. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any other announcements? Well, Tim, I'm 7 minutes over, but it's not too bad. All right, let's go over items for future TAC meetings. I feel like the homework you gave us, Catherine, so is it coming up in October?
The what?
You gave us some homework to do. I just don't remember what it was. So is it coming back on the agenda for October?
Yes, thank you for reminding me. That's the project delivery process, the proposed one that I'm asking everyone to provide feedback on. So we've been getting good feedback there, and I'll bring that information to you in October. And that's all I have so far.
Does anybody have anything else that may or may not be coming up in the future? Okay, well, enjoy that meeting that I can't remember the exact title of. Hold on, let's have it. Front Range Passenger Trail, if anybody wants to get on it. If not, everyone else have a wonderful day, and we'll see you in October.
Thanks, Brandon.
Hey, y'all take care.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.